Okay, so this is the second module in managerial accounting, and you will notice that it is actually Chapter 9. Chapter 9, I think, is really useful to do early on. The concepts aren't difficult, but the procedures of how to build the Excel models in budgeting, right? So this is actually budgets. Profit planning is budgeting, and more specifically, the process for building budgets. The skills that you learn in doing this will be helpful for you to bring forward into some of the more conceptually challenging material earlier and later in the textbook. Okay, I just want to briefly take a little bit of time and talk about sort of the budgeting process, what budgets are, how they're put together, and what the purpose of a budget is. So first of all, it's important to know that all businesses really should and do prepare budgets. It's an important aspect of any kind of professional management. In order to plan anything, you have to have an idea of what you're expecting to see happen. So what a budget does is it allows managers to plan, and then also it allows them to control or to manage by comparing what actually happened to what they planned to see happen in the budget. It's really a matter of accountability, right? Accountability, or did you do what you said you were going to do? And I can tell you that the way that it works in the real world is that the process of budgeting is basically a way for managers to formally state what their expectations are. And it gets to be a little dicey, politically. If you say to a department chair or department head, hey, what do you think you're going to be selling this year? And then you write it down in a budget. And of course, this was my job from a very early stage in my life, was sitting down with senior management and getting them to tell me what their plans were, and then putting them in, budget documents or business plans. The process of coming up with those numbers, the formal process, is pretty intense. By the time something shows up in a budget, it has been thought through, because again, it becomes a way of putting your money down on the table, saying what you really think is going to happen. And I should also note that it's not just major corporations that need to do this. Small businesses budget, nonprofits budget, colleges and universities budgets, state and local and federal governments budget, right? This is something that is ubiquitous. It is everywhere in the world of general management. Now, a master budget, has many parts, right? So the master budget is for the whole company. Now, if it's a major corporation, you're going to have, divisional budgets that all roll up. But even a small business, all of my clients, when I was working for the Small Business Development Center, they all have multiple components, and it begins with sales and it ends with a budgeted income statement and a cash budget. Budgeted balance sheets, of course, you can break out the general budgets as sort of two worlds, right? Up above this line here, this is operational. This is a budget that allows businesses to plan for their operations. And down here, this is all the financial budget. How are they going to pay for long-term investments? What's their balance sheet going to look like, etc. It all begins, though. It all begins with a sales budget. How much are you going to sell next year? Everything flows out of sales. If nobody sells anything, nothing happens, right? Now, for manufacturers, this then all goes into a production budget. So this would apply for manufacturing. So how much are you going to sell? leads to how much are you going to produce, right? How much are you going to sell leads to how much are you going to produce. What's it going to take for you to be able to produce this? How much materials are you going to need? How much labor are you going to need? What's your overhead going to be? Okay. Also, at the same time, you need to be looking at how much your sort of corporate overhead or your selling and administrative expenses are going to be, right? All of your production costs go into your finished goods inventory budget, which go into the cost of goods sold. And then you add that in with the selling and administrative budget, and you come up with a budgeted income statement, or a pro forma, right? Pro forma means looking forward. Pro forma, a prospective income statement. Depending on when you get paid and how long it takes you to pay your suppliers, etc., that'll give you your cash budget, which then goes into the balance sheet. If you have long-term intentions about major capital expenditures, those also need to go into the cash budget. All of these together go to the balance sheet, which then allows you to have a budgeted statement of cash flows. I can tell you in reality, what we are interested in from a business planning perspective is the cash budget, because cash is king, right? And the cash budget is not exactly the same as the budgeted statement of cash flows. Budgeted statement of cash flows, this is just a financial statement. It really doesn't have much to do with operations, but the cash budget is everything in this budgeting process, particularly if you're trying to go out and get money. Now, all of the rest of this series of lectures, or the series of I guess, videos, that's all going to be using this entire graphic here, and we're going to keep this graphic in the corner of the video. I'm going to switch from my iPad here over to the big computer, where I'm going to show you how to do each one of these in turn. Each of these represents one page on a spreadsheet, on a multi-page spreadsheet. And when you get done with each of these, and with this entire sort of comprehensive business model, right, you're going to have this in your back pocket to use in your career. Okay, so don't get rid of this spreadsheet. Doing this in business school when I was working on my MBA in the early 90s, having this model basically allowed me to have a livelihood for the entire rest of my career, to be honest with you. Knowing how to do these interrelated budgets is, just very valuable, very useful, and very broadly applicable outside of the classroom as well. So the rest of this module's lectures, they're all going to be using this graphic and then going through each of these pages one at a time, showing you how to build them in Excel, and then you'll have a couple of homework assignments that reinforces it, and by the end of your efforts in this, you are going to have a really, really useful skill set.